I saw this video of the little kid with corn. It's juicy. If
Hey,
you haven't, look it up on YouTube if you haven't seen it. It's hilarious.
we're
About juicy
live.
corn.
We're
Yep, juicy
live.
corn. Little kid. Yeah.
Hey,
Sorry, Steve.
hey,
It's
hey.
okay. We're live, and we're going to continue this conversation about this panel, which is called The Crunch and the Juice. It's corn, which, as Sean was commenting, is a thing on TikTok where there's this little kid that just loves corn, and it went viral, and then somebody went and used that to make a song that's about it that went even more viral and crazy. I, in fact, actually did a TikTok using that song about lit RPG, because I mean I had to after we had, because it in the song it says it has the juice, and I mean how could I not say lit RPGs has the juice after I was at DragonCon. So to start things off, my name is Steve Campbell. I'm an audiobook narrator and do a lot of work in lit RPG. And what I'm going to do now is allow everyone, starting with Shami on my right, to introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about who they are, what books they're working on or what they've done, and then we will get into this great conversation. Are you going to start this now? You found it?
For me, I really like corn.
What do you like about corn?
It's corn! A big corn that knobs. It has the juice. And a more beautiful thing. It's corn! I'll tell you all about
Okay. Yeah, it's fun. All right. So,
everyone clapping. Okay. Come on, guys. Let's give them a round of applause. Come on, guys.
Shami, why don't we start with you?
All right. My name is Shami Stovall. Shami like the car cloth. I've been writing books for like 6 or 7 years. I really love progression fantasy. It's just a genre. It's definitely my jam. Lit RPG is super fantastic, and I can't wait to talk about the crunch and the juice, because that seems like it's a topic that's always discussed in lit RPG circles. What exactly makes something crunchy? What makes it juicy, or corn in this case? So looking forward to all that.
Sean?
So I have two faces. Sean, David. Anyway, seriously, I've been writing since May of 2019, which does not sound like very long at all. Started to write as, I don't know, personal therapy or something. And somebody actually wanted to read it. So, hey, here we are. 27 books later, between the two pen names and having fun. Currently working on Class Shift 3 to finish a trilogy for Sean Oswald, and Prism Academy 3 for David Burke. So
fantastic. Harmon.
Which Harmon?
Harmon Cooper, Lit RPG Juice.
Hey, everybody. I'm Harmon Cooper, Lit RPG Juice. And I am Harmon Cooper, and I've written 70-something books. And my newest one comes out tomorrow, and it's called The World According to Dragons. And I will talk about that as well.
Now, I have to ask, what is the orange representing here? Why are we...
Well, I thought the theme was Neon Southwest, and no one else. That's what someone told me. And so I went all out, you guys. Like, I mean, I spent like $100 on this fucking outfit, and, well, here we are.
I think you underpaid. I think it's worth way more than that. Absolutely. That's incredible. I love
Thank
Nick
you.
Cage on your face. I think that should be something.
He's a really big, I was talking to some authors. He'd be a really good or awesome narrator. So some of you, like Matt, since you're your next one, you should try to like get some Nicolas Cage on there.
Fantastic. And the real Harmon Cooper, could you introduce yourself, please?
So my name's Harmon Cooper. I write under the name Matt Dinneman sometimes. I write a book series called Dungeon Crawler Carl, Dominion of Blades, a few other things. And apparently we're here to talk about juice.
Yay!
And I did not get the neon memo. So
I missed
we
that memo too. Yeah.
Death metal. I'm wearing a goat horror shirt, I think. Yeah. So
that's awesome.
It's okay.
I don't think anyone got the memo.
So let's jump right into this here and see if you guys, how many of you are familiar with the term juice and possibly have looked up, now that we've gone through this with DragonCon, what it might mean. Is anyone familiar with what happened or how this came about with the juice?
Like the term
Who-
specifically?
Yeah, the term juice, and then well, I know I was there, but I believe Matt, you were on the panel when this came up.
I was not on the panel, but
You
I
were
was
not
in
on the panel?
audience.
Harmon,
I
you
was
were
on the panel.
Okay,
I'm
Harmon,
the only person that got the juice question correct.
I
you
didn't
sure?
know anybody got the juice question correct. It seemed like he was telling everybody that they were close, but not quite. So
I thought he said like I was close. I was the closest, so I was like, well, I'll consider that a win. You know, it's like coming in fifth place, but no one came in first, so
yeah, I would take that for sure. So let me just give you a brief recap for those of you who are unfamiliar. We were at DragonCon, or many of us were at DragonCon in Atlanta, and there was a panel that was being held, and the moderator wanted to talk about juice and how the authors felt about juice, or what was representative of juice in their lit RPG. And everyone on the panel, it seemed, and everyone in the audience was looking at this guy going, what are you talking about? And he tried to explain it, but it didn't seem like it quite resonated with anybody. And so a few of the authors tried to give extrapolation or expansion on what they thought it was, or what they were trying to understand about it. And the moderator kept on going, yeah, that's not it. Yeah, that's not it. That's not quite it. And so it took a large portion of the panel of us trying to understand what juice was. And some people from the audience were offering options, and it never quite got there. So we need to find out what this juice means. So
Give me one
Harmon-
second. I got to type the end here.
Harmon, why don't you start us off with what your interpretation of juice was, or have you learned more about it since that panel? Have you researched it anymore?
I cannot say that I've researched it any more than Matt Denneman has researched it. Have you researched the juice anymore, Matt?
No, I was just trying to do damage control after that panel. That's its
You
own
did some
story.
good damage control. I don't. I think it's. I think it was more of like the what's the guy? The host? What? No, he's not a host. What is he? The guy who asks questions.
Moderator. Yep.
The moderator.
Damn it, that's the word.
He was
I think the
the
moderator. Yeah, I think he just was coming from like maybe like a tabletop RPG background, and so for him, it sounded like it meant world building, which is why I kind of was close, because I just talked about some of the research I did for Cowboy Necromancer, including going to the Southwest like 3 or 4 times, all the books I borrowed from to like create the world. And that was kind of close to him, but I still apparently wasn't right, according to Ryan DeBrune, even though I would say that I'm going to rewrite history and say I was right on the juice. But I think it means more of like, aside from the mechanics, which, you know, Dakota was on the panel, so mechanics are a huge deal. And aside from that, where are you getting your story?
Matt, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, that's Harmon just said is kind of what I thought he was getting at, but then some people said that. So what is the dude kept asking about the goddamn juice, and it went on for like 15 minutes straight. And then people were like, well, does that mean the story that's flows around the mechanics? And then he said no. And then then I go into the chat and I'm like, this guy's a fucking idiot. And then someone said, you know, his sister who runs DragonCon is in this chat. And then I had to go tell him to his face. But anyway, I still don't know what it is. It became this giant inside joke, and then Harmon made me sit on this damn panel, and I still don't know what it is. But you know, if you want to talk about, you know, the story, how the story flows around mechanics, I'm more than happy to.
And then Shami, is this all brand new to you, or what are you bringing to the table here with the talk of juiciness?
Yeah, why are you here, Shami?
Yeah, why am I here? Like, what am I doing?
We need you.
I went to DragonCon. I don't think I attended the panel about the crunch and the juice, because I don't remember a
You would have
moderator.
remembered if you were there.
Yeah, so I wasn't at that panel. I was probably doing something else. At least from what I know, completely unrelated to this mystery panel that happened in the past. I always considered crunch to be how number intensive and how mechanical and logical your system was on like a scale. So at one end is crunch and on the other end is juice. So it would be confined completely to your system and how much your system has like rules in it. So the more rules, the more numbers. If you're using like asymptotic curves to calculate certain different types of like damage, then you're crunchy. And if you have like a 1 to 5 scale on your stats and that's about it, then you're more juicy because it's a little more not defined. So that's how I always thought of the juice and the crunch, but maybe it's world building and things around your system as well. So
just throwing this out there, I always thought that was crunch and cream,
crunch and
like
cream.
peanut butter, how crunchy, how creamy. So maybe the juice is not just how crunchy it is, but how much do those stats actually apply to the world building? Because you can have stats galore and they don't mean anything, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, again, if we're going to talk about stuff relating around the system, that's a good thing to talk about too. Whenever somebody brought up crunch and juice to me, I always thought it was just a sliding scale. Is it crunchy or is it juicy? Is it light or is it dark? Yeah, that type of thing.
I actually, when I was asked to moderate this panel, I went ahead and did a little bit of research trying to understand what the hell juice is, because I was confused, as everyone else seemed to be when I was sitting in on that panel. And from what I can extrapolate from reading into juiciness and RPG is that juiciness is the emotional satisfaction or gratification that comes from when you add flair or flourishes to the actual items or things that you are collecting in an RPG game. So if you get a coin and the coin blings, how that bling is represented, how often that bling comes, how sparkly the bling is, all of that kind of stuff is what ends up being the juiciness of your RPG game. All of those little things that create emotional satisfaction and joy to playing the game. How that translates, because often those things are visual and audio, oratory, audibly heard. I can't even say those words. How those things translate to a written word seems a little bit odd to me. So it kind of felt like a little bit of an out of place question, considering that description of it for an RPG panel, lit RPG panel at DragonCon. But the fact remains that we do add things that make it feel more gratifying when it comes to lit RPG books, I would find. And then how does that translate into something that's done in, say, your audiobooks? And do you guys consider that important or interesting? I know for you, Matt, we're going to start with you because you have Soundbooth Theater doing Dungeon Crawler Carl, and Jeff Hayes is known for doing a little bit more with his books in effects and adding that kind of stuff. So I would imagine that the juiciness there would be maybe what he's doing in adding those voice effects to his audio. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if that's the definition of juice.
Matt's over here typing, man, this guy's an idiot, into some sort of chat.
You asked to be on this panel, Matt, when you started the fight with yeah.
So anyway, I specifically wanted Jeff Hayes to do the audiobook because of the way he adds a lot of audio bling to the stories. I didn't want it to be a full-on audio, like audio drama, like the other story of mine that they do, which is Kaiju, which is full cast, all that stuff. But he has little blings here when they talk, when during chat, and then he does voice modulation for the AI. You should listen to it; it's great. I mean, he does a fantastic job. I have over at this point, it's like approaching 300 named characters in the book, and I swear he has voices for every single damn one of them. But so that's sort of I feel strongly that sort of enhancement to the story is necessary for an audiobook of that size. It's so much easier for people to follow the story when they don't have to necessarily just remember the name. They can remember the voice and all that stuff. And I mean, is that the juice? I don't know.
So Jeff Hayes has the juice. I would
Yes.
agree that he does have the juice. I've done, God, how many? Like 15, I want to say 15 books with Jeff. I don't know, something like that. It's a lot. It's probably more. We should probably keep track. And we're redoing one of my series next year that I released years ago called Fantasy Online. And we're releasing it as Proxima Legends. And we did Monster Hunt NYC, which is a full production audio similar to Battle Kaiju. And yeah, having all those enhancements make it a really enjoyable experience, I think, for some of the listeners. Some people don't like it, but it seems like the majority appreciate the effort.
Yeah.
Shami, Sean, can you kind of extrapolate on what you think, maybe how that would translate into what you're writing, as opposed to just having it be in the audio format? Do you think it's applicable, or is it just something that he kind of burdened on and it's like it's not applicable to Lit RPG?
You mean this kind of like flare and bling on
Yeah.
the sides, or almost these like funny descriptions? I suppose I've read a couple books that do things like have illustrations and things inside of them. So if we're defining the juice as like all of this extra flair that's around the book, I think that you can have that, yeah, as like in the audiobooks, like with Matt Denovan stuff and Harmon Cooper's stuff. Illustrations, really snarky systems, or like item descriptions. I guess I've never heard it defined that way, but you can do it. I think it is just a little bit harder because in novel format, as the author, I'm supposed to write everything, and then if I want additional flair, I've got to go get an artist. I mean, I guess I could be my own artist, but supposedly I'd have to go get an artist. I'd have to go get an audiobook guy, ask them to add the flair in. So I guess this is an odd definition, but you could totally do it.
I mean,
think,
I released. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Sean.
I was going to say I released a book today that has interior art, so I wouldn't really call it a light novel, but that's just a value added to me. I would have never thought of the word juice related to that, but it's just something so that maybe they can visualize a character a little differently or whatever. And some people like that. The problem for me is I just want to read the stories. So, to me, what's most important is how does all of these aspects, like I don't just want my character to get this amazing magic sword that has no meaning or bearing on the character, the development of the character, the plot, and getting those things should all be part of the pacing that we have so that there's a continual feeling of accomplishment. I don't know. That to me, that's what this means. Does the book have the juice? Is it moving along? Do I feel like there's something that's constantly happening? Is there progression? But regarding like Juice's art in the books, I've done that as well, and I guess like I would consider it that. Like one of the things I wanted to do with Cowboy Necromancer was include sketches of like the main character's journals, because he keeps a journal of desert haiku. So sketches of the Southwest, and then there's like kind of found objects and things like that. So my wife is an artist, and she does some of the art for the interior of the book. I don't know if I'm picking that up correctly, but it's as Shami said, it's an extra piece that and it also makes it harder to. I'm lucky to have a wife that can do it. Like Matt, you could do it because you're an artist already, but like it's an extra piece, an extra part of the puzzle. And I don't know like how much it actually enhances the reading experience as much, and it definitely doesn't enhance the audio experience. I mean, I just did a poll on my Patreon on whether they wanted to see art in the books. Now, I should clarify, this is David Burke versus Sean Oswald. And most of these people are looking at those books. And the vast majority of them were in we want 6 to 10 pictures in every book. Now, I don't have 5,000 patrons, so this is a small sample size. But it was relevant to me, and it helped me know where my core was at.
Oh, that's good.
I want to kind of touch on this a little bit more, because I think that putting art into your book could definitely be considered juiciness added to it. Another thing that I thought of as you guys were talking was something that you do in yours, Matt, referring to potential juiciness of, say, stats, where you add a different kind of flair to every one of the AIs, or certain AIs that come up talking about what's coming up. Like, for example, the foot fetish, or some, adding like a British accent, or putting like an intelligence to the AI, so that the stats are read by, they become their own character rather than just stats in the book. Do you think that that could be considered juiciness in a book?
I hope so. The reason why I did that is, I read a lot of lit RPG, and I listen, a lot of it I consume via audiobook, and it got to the point where I was like skipping and fast forwarding through all the stats and all the reading, because, if you're not invested in the actual numbers, and some people are, but a lot of us just like to fast forward through all that stuff. So I wanted to make a way where all the announcements and the stats and all that stuff was entertaining, and people would look forward to the announcements. And the best way to do that is to, throw a joke in there, or make it gross, or make it funny. And that's just one of many ways that I try to, make the story interesting beyond just the actual plot.
What about you,
Thinking
Shannon?
of audiobooks, I've started putting stat sheets, like if it's the full stat sheet, not, whatever little minor upgrade or whatever, as its own separate chapter, because to my thinking, the audio reader, if they want it, then they've got it. And if they don't, it's an easy skip. So.
So for my Lit RPG series, I tried to keep the stats relatively short whenever they do show up, or in a lot of instances, because the Lit RPG I write is like a death game scenario. So a lot of the people keep their stats hidden from the main character. So a lot of the times he'll roll up and he'll be like, you can't actually see them. So it goes by a little quicker. But I guess in terms of like snarkiness, or like a way to make it more entertaining, I do have like a ringmaster / game host that is insane. And so a lot of the times when he describes the events of the game, or he's describing the stats of other characters or their abilities, he does so in like a crazy way that is very entertaining. So even if you skipped a bunch of the stats, when the ringmaster shows up to give a summary of what happened, he does so with like as many jokes as you could possibly fit into 3 or 4 sentences of dialogue. So hopefully it's, then entertaining.
So this is a great question. It kind of ties into what we're doing here. Do you ever write with the audiobook version in mind? And we'll start with you, Harmon, and then we'll go to Matt, and then we'll go to Shami, and then Sean at the end.
I absolutely write with the audio in mind. I generally know who my narrator is now long before I start a project. So the book that I have coming out tomorrow, it's produced by Tantor. Wayne Mitchell is narrating it. I wanted him to narrate a book. I've had him on my mind for this book for over a year. And so I do write like that. Monster Hunt NYC, which is available for free on Audible Plus, which is with Jeff Hayes and Annie Ellicott from SBT. I wrote that with them in mind. I actually told Jeff before I wrote it, I want to write a book about a bass player who can use his bass guitar as a weapon. And he has a character who's like Annie, he's in a band with, who they can then fight monsters and play music and stuff. So I wrote that with that in mind. I have another project on the back burner that I would like to do it one day, but those full production audios are very costly to produce, and and you have to find the right people to do them. And so it's something that I definitely do. And I also, if it's a new narrator for me, I will listen to a book that they've done, so I can kind of imagine as I'm writing how it will sound in their voice. So for Wayne Mitchell, I listened to Silver Fox, and so that's one reason that I had chosen him, because I'm like, yeah, I could really work with this. And then for Tokens and Towers, Daniel Wisniewski and Rebecca Wood, I listened to Battleborn, and just to see like how they interact together. And of course, you, Steve, I really want to work with you one day too. So I basically have so many narrators I want to work with, and I really like hearing their perspectives and their changes on everything. and it influences my writing.
Awesome. Matt?
Everything I write with audio in mind. I read it out loud to myself. I have an AI read it to myself, and how it sounds spoken is super important to me. So I don't necessarily have it. Well, now I hear Jeff's voice everywhere I go, but even in my dreams and my nightmares. But I don't usually have a specific narrator in mind when I do it. I have the character's voice in my mind. Their and how would they say this? What inflection would they have? Screw the comma rules. I'm gonna put commas where they would pause. That sort of thing. So yeah, I
Definitely. Do. Shami.
For the longest time, I did not. Even now, it's somewhat of a struggle because I read all of my stuff aloud when I'm writing it. So, I'll write a chapter, I'll go through, I'll read it aloud to myself. So sometimes, and I know this sounds stupid, my voice is the voice I hear when I'm, and I hear this, and sometimes when I hear the audio, I'm like, that's not what they sound like, but obviously that's silly. However, for some of my series, after I've listened to the audiobooks, then I hear their voice. Like
Right.
I have like a 7-book series, the My Arcanist series, and the first couple books, all I could hear was my voice. And then after the audio came out and Brian Wiggins did all of his amazing audio, now I hear Brian Wiggins' voice, but I never actually go into a project being like, my God, I need this specific person to be reading it. One, I don't actually listen to a lot of audiobooks recreationally. I only do so now for work. So I feel like I come from a different place because I'm not a huge audiobook consumer. And again, I read all my stuff aloud, so sometimes I just get my own voice stuck in my own head, my weird nasally voice. So no, but I do love working with audiobook people just because voice actors, they're really passionate about their work, and it's really, really fun to hear their take on characters and to hear them do like voice acting for certain characters. Super fun experience. Really love it. I'm not yet at a place where I'm like, my God, I need Jeff Hayes to do X, Y, and Z. He's super talented, but I'm not there yet.
Awesome. Sean.
I'm limited in this just because I'm 100% a reader. And Steve, that's no knock against you. Sorry. It's how I found books. It's how I love books. I have listened to one audiobook in my entire life all the way through, and that was the Screwtape Letters narrated by John Cleese.
Oh, well.
So yeah, I know. But I listen to samples from all of the different narrators that have narrated my books, and I'm like, holy cow, this person is like bringing this to life in a way that I couldn't imagine. It's still not how I want to consume the book, because I want to be able to read through it. But I'm like, oh, well, in fact, Rebecca Wood narrated a character of mine, and I listened to her narration of it. I'm like, I like that character now. I wasn't so sure about them before. Now I like them. So what I do, keeping an audio in mind, and there are two things. First off, I'm conscious of the fact that narrators can be hard to book out because you may be booking them way ahead of time. The spots that I have Travis booked for are like a long ways out. But I have a series next year that Neil is going to narrate, and I'm really excited about it. He did a short story version of it in an anthology, and it was a perfect fit, and I'm excited to do that. But the main thing that I'm doing now is I'm really so much more conscious about character transitions, about point of view, about how I outline stats and things, and putting those in a separate chapter, or even with David Burke, putting some different types of scenes at the ends of chapters or in their own chapters to make it so that there's no bar to anyone enjoying the book. If you just want the lit RPG, if you want more romance, you can get that more romance. Whatever it is you want, it's going to be there. And then our readers or listeners learn what our patterns are, and I maintain those patterns so that they know if they get my book, they're going to have that pattern, if that makes sense.
It does. Yeah. I can appreciate that for sure. So let's get back into the crunch here a little bit more and step away from the audio and juice and stuff. Have you ever added something to your work that made you have to totally rewrite the crunchy parts? Shami, let's start with you. I think you're muted.
Sorry. Yeah.
There we go.
I'm like, what? I'm muted. Okay. I would say no, but I could see it happening, I guess. I feel like I'm probably different than some people. I like to extensively outline everything in my books. I know exactly what I'm going to write and what I need to put in there. So most of the time when I think of the crunchy bits, like the numbers and other stuff, I've thought about them ahead of time. So I'm never like writing and then suddenly I'm like, whoa, I'm going to add in something I totally didn't expect here, and then need to rewrite all my crunchy bits. I also based my entire Lit RPG system off of a tabletop game that me and my husband designed. So I have the benefit of having the whole system already done, and I can go reference whenever I need to. So no, I've never added anything into my book that has made me totally rewrite crunchy parts. But I could see that being a problem in all seriousness if you were kind of doing everything by the seat of your pants.
You bring up a great point, and it's something I want to ask you about a little bit more with this, because I know that there are people, and I mean, I know that the pantsy or pantsy writers, which I kind of prefer to call discovery
Pantsy.
writers, because I feel like it's a better way of phrasing it. But the discovery writers, as opposed to a plotter, the story's coming to them as they're writing it, and the plotters or the outliners like yourself will write that out. And then they know where they're going. They know where it's going to end. But I'm asking you specifically because you are a plotter, if there's a point when you're writing the story that you suddenly get this inspiration or this realization with something that you've written or something that a character does, and suddenly you're like, oh, wow. And it takes you in a slightly different or broader range than what you were expecting in your outline. And that maybe that would be a time when you would feel like, oh, I need to change something possibly in the crunch or in the plot itself about what you're writing.
I have totally had like those types of moments. They're usually with side characters where in my outline, I'm like, side character B does X, Y, and Z. And then when I go to write it, I'm like, wow, side character B is so much cooler than I thought side character B was going to be. So now I want side character B in every scene, like that type of situation. I have had that. I don't think I've ever had to rewrite major story beats, because I think other writers here probably have this too. I like to visualize certain scenes in my head in the story, and then I'll just think about that scene like over and over and over again until I've got it like totally right. So those types of scenes, I don't think I ever rewrite, but a lot of the in-between scenes or littler characters, I totally do. And sometimes if people are way more interesting, or sometimes in my outlines, I'm like, wow, character C is going to be so cool. And then I'm writing character C and I'm like, man, what a sad sack, this milquetoast lunatic. And then I try and write him out of the entire story because I just don't like this character anymore. But it's minor. I think for the most part, all major story beats I've thought of ahead of time because those are my favorite. And like the ending to a book is my favorite. That's the part of any story that I'll remember the most is how did it end? I blame Ender's Game for this just because it blew my mind when I was a kid. And so now I'm like, man, I can't wait until I get to the end of the story. Can't wait to see what this is. But yeah, so to answer your question, only sometimes with minor characters. Most major story beats I don't end up rewriting. And I've never had to rework the crunch system because of even minor characters. Again, I have the entire crunch system, like the benefit of just having it completed. So it would be awkward to redo it, if that makes any sense.
It does. Yeah. Sean, how about you?
So no is the short answer. But it's to me that it's all based on like 33 years of being a DM. And in fact, Life in Exile, that system was a homebrew system built for a table that I ran. And on Saturday night, I'm getting ready to go play test a system for a game that we're going to be using next year in a series, just because I want to see how it works and how people respond. The main thing is I basically write the system and have a fair amount of understanding of that. And then I write like landmarks. Oh, there, we've got to pass the Grand Canyon. We've got to, do this, just major things. And then I flesh out the idea of who the character is, and the character guides the story for me from there on out. And maybe that's the DM, because no matter how much you plot a story for your characters in D&D, one of them's going to do something completely off. But we're here to save the king. Oh, you mean that dude in the bed that I just stabbed? Yeah, that's who we meant. Okay, so everything changed right then and there. And so I really do find that things change a lot, but it never changes the crunchy part, because that to me is like the physics of the world. And so they operate within it, but the interpersonal relationships and sometimes who's good and who's bad shifts around a little bit. I've had several redemption arcs that were for people that I intended to kill off. But it's how the characters play out. So no to crunch changing, but yes to how it changes the characters and how they develop along the way for me.
Harmon, what about you?
Harmon Cooper, Lit RPG Juice King, or Matt Dinneman as Harmon Cooper?
We're, for the sake of brevity, we're going to keep Matt as his pen name of Matt Dinneman. And so
Okay,
when I say
perfect.
Harmon, I'm referring to you as the Lit RPG Juice King. Is that
Yes.
okay?
That's perfect. No, I would never allow some crunch to make me have to rework something. I can't even imagine. I mean, at that point, you could just reset the system. But that's a whole nother conversation. I think that's a question for people that are really, really too deep into a system, perhaps. And I don't think anyone that I know would, if you set up your system with like parameters, the only way that you could break it would then be like having something like a reset or something like that happen. So I wouldn't let it derail me, because that would throw off my production, and I would just think of another way to do it. And so to then talk about the aspect of gardening or discovery writing or pantsing, which I don't say because it sounds dumb, is I think that there's with everything. I think that there is a both like a balanced approach, and that's and I try for that approach. So I do plot some things, especially if a new project. I will build the world, like with the World According to Dragons. I've been building this world since 2018. So I'm building a playground for it to happen, because I want to write other series within the world. And then I will plot a loose, just like this chapter he does this chapter he does this, just to get me started. And then I let the creative process take over at that point, because, and I know Matt's will say something like this. If I'm not surprised by it, I feel like the reader won't be surprised, but there is a finesse that comes with that. And there is like a skill that Matt's been writing for decades. So there's a skill that comes with it's almost like playing music. It's a gut thing that where it should go, what should happen. And then what I do end up doing later on is, if I come to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm going to do something here, I will just write down 4 or 5 options, and that will be my plot. And then I will circle the one that seems the most interesting and that I could build off the most. And then I'll go with that. And I beat myself up on this all the time, because I keep telling myself, oh, you should be plotting. This guy said plot, or this guy said plot. But I'm like, well, George R.R. Martin gardens. He doesn't plot. So, I mean, there's a lot. Stephen King doesn't plot. There's a lot of people that, if you do it enough, like we do it every single day, you get a feel for it. And you can be wrong, but you do get a feel for it, in my opinion.
Matt, what about you?
Well, I mean, back to the original question: do I change the system based on things that I want to happen or have happened in the plot? And the answer is I do. I don't change the crunch. I bend without breaking. I'm luckily my most recent series, Dungeon Crawler Carl, the system is designed, it's a reality show. So the producers are behind the scenes deliberately fudging the numbers to make the story more interesting, which gives me an easy out of pretty much anything I do. But yeah, I don't plot anything. I don't garden either. I kill every plant I try to grill. I raw dog it. I guess it's I don't know how a sentence is going to end before I start typing it. Usually, yeah. But I also rewrite a lot, and and it's my own damn fault. I'll write a scene 3 or 4 or 5 times, and I'll pick whichever my favorite one. And one I'll kill off the main character. I'm like, nah, I won't do that. And then another one I'll just kill off a side character, and then I'll go that direction.
That's awesome. Now we have a question that's come up that's incredibly important, and I need you to all think very seriously about what your answer is. Why haven't you authors used Steve Moore? So I haven't worked with any of you four, and I'm curious to know exactly what has happened there.
Oh my goodness.
I'm teasing. Do not answer this question, please, for the love of my own sanity and for my own ego, because I do not want to hear these answers.
No,
So-
we will work together. I've already told you that. I have to find a series, man. Yeah. You're on my docket, so I hope I'm on yours.
You're on my list.
You're on my. If you guys remember that scene, was it Billy Madison where he's like putting on lipstick and he's creating a list of people? Yeah, not that list, just a list. It might not be Billy Madison. It might be another Adam Sandler movie.
So
No, that was Billy Madison.
Oh, okay, I was right.
nice.
And Steve has the juice.
So coming back to this whole crunch versus juice thing, and the idea that we want to make sure that we're making it so that the story is accessible and interesting and has that gratifying feeling that we want readers to have, so that they want to keep coming back to the books. How concerned are you with the amount of crunch that you're adding in there? Is it really important to you? Is it moderately important to you? Or do you take the readers' opinions as the books are coming out, as to when the reviews come in saying, hey, this is way too crunchy, or this wasn't crunchy enough? Is that something that you guys consider or is concerned with for you? Sean, let's start with you.
So first off, maybe this is the wrong thing to say, but I talk to readers all the time. I listen to everything they say. It doesn't usually change what I do, though. I mean, I'm writing the story that I want to write. I write something that I want to read. I write something that I think is consistent with the characters and how they live it out. I mean, they tell me what they want me to say, and I do it. So, they're pulling my strings. So, but in all reality, crunch is really important to me because I am highly on that end of the spectrum, and probably on the spectrum. But
We're all on the spectrum.
Yeah, probably so. The reality is that I don't. More than crunch, though, what I care about is don't tell me that a character has strength 10 and it doesn't mean anything. Like he has strength 10 and 1 minute he can pick up his water bottle and the next minute he can pick up his car. I mean, don't do that to me. Either don't use the stat or make it mean something. So, and so that's, and I've written books that range from really crunchy, like Life in Exile is a pretty crunchy series, to the 4 Law series with Law of Strength is not very crunchy at all. It appears, but every time the stats do mean something, and the character makes decisions based upon, hey, I'm physically strong but magically weak, so I have to make strategies and decisions based on that. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, very much. Harmon, what about you?
I am probably the least crunchy here. I mean, I consider myself that. I'm terrible at math. And honestly, it's amazing that I'm able to do this full time. And the only way that I'm able to do it is because I can just write so fast that I can get ahead of myself. And I do use Excel spreadsheets and things like that. I don't like too much crunch, honestly. I'm more story driven, and my books aren't as popular as some others because of that reason, but then they also resonate differently with people. And I'll have people that are they don't just fall off the map in the same way as some of the more popular books kind of seem to at some point. And so there's a shelf life that feels a little bit different, in my opinion. So my crunch isn't isn't what it should be. I want to get it there, but I always get more engaged with the stories. So that's just kind of where I'm at. So I usually shift more towards gamelit. Tokens and Towers is probably one of the crunchier things I've done. Cowboy Necromancer has crunch, but the main character is literally a pepper farmer from Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, who doesn't like the system that's been put on his life. So he doesn't really care for it, except if he has to use it. And so it kind of plays out that I don't use it that much. That said, in the third book, I did do like a more typical crunchy lit RPG chapter in which he got 10 levels in one chapter, and I went through the stats every single freaking time. And it's pretty much the only chapter in the entire 150,000 word book that really dives into the stats. So I was kind of like, well, I can do that too. There's a challenge to myself. And I got the math all wrong, of course. And so luckily one of my beta readers, like, he went through the entire chapter and corrected the math. I shouldn't be here, guys.
Shami?
So what I like about the lit RPG system, and maybe this is just because I've played games my whole life, like video games or like board games, other stuff like that, tabletop games, is that lit RPG uses numbers, and I feel like numbers are the most logical, the most hardline style system you could possibly go with. I used to play Pokemon competitively quite a bit. So, for example, if a Pokemon has a 42 speed and a different Pokemon has a 41 speed, the dude who's got 42 speed goes first. That's just how it is. There's no hard line. There's no, I know in like the anime, it's like, well, Pikachu was on the balls of his feet, but he goes first for whatever reason. But in the video games with actual numbers, it's logical. It's very easy to comprehend. I agree with Sean. I hate when people put in numbers and they don't mean anything, or they don't give me a reference to what it means. So if I'm reading a book and it's like, this guy's got a 5 strength, and I'm like, what does that mean? Does that mean he can lift a car, or does it mean he can lift 50 pounds at work? Like, what's his cap? What's his, like, how does it compare to somebody with a 4 strength, for example? Like, how much stronger is this asshole? Pardon my language. Sorry, I don't know if we're cursing on this.
You can swear away if you like.
Okay. So what I really love in lit RPGs are when authors at least give me some sort of frame of reference. So if they're like, hey man, this guy's got a 10 strength, and that means that he's superhuman powered. The average guy has a 2 strength. So a 10 is, so many categories removed from him that he might as well be Superman. And I'm like, oh, okay, now I have a reference to what an average guy is, how strong this guy is. Like, I really enjoy that. And so later when he fights somebody with an 11 strength, I could be like, oh my God, that guy's got an 11 strength. He's Superman +1. And then I'm excited. I guess that's what I kind of like from the crunchy system, is that if you like the numbers and the logic, you can get excited very quickly from very little information. Like when I played Pokemon, if a Pokemon has 132 speed, I'm like, my God, it is in a new speed category that all the other Pokemon pale in comparison, which is hard to describe without hard logical numbers. Like when I write in my other progression fantasy that has no numbers, if I'm like, this guy's super fast, what exactly does super fast mean? Mm-hmm. Most of the time I still do comparison analysis because I like that. I'm like, oh man, a hawk can fly this fast, but this guy, he's like 30 hawks. And then boom, and then that, it's fun. So I like crunch in that it's very unique to the lit RPG system, and I like crunch in that it's very logical and easy to understand. And I guess when I use it in my own works, I try to do comparative analysis a lot just because I find that fun. So I've never gotten complaints in reviews, people being like, oh man, I super hate the system. I think it's probably a pretty straightforward, easy to understand system. And so I don't get comments on it really one way or the other. Like, oh, they hate it, or oh wow, what a unique and amazing system. It's just a system. It's a competent system.
That's awesome. Matt, you're gonna finish this question.
I just kind of sprinkle a little bit of crunch all over. It's like taking, yogurt and throwing a few granolas in there, I agree that it should be important. But sometimes it's also just part of the environment. The crunch itself is the setting. It's it doesn't it should be important, but it doesn't necessarily have to all be important. Like you see his intelligence is, 3, and then you know that this person has an intelligence of 7. And part of that is just letting the reader know that that exists in this world. It doesn't all have to be, it doesn't all have to tie back to this, and that. But, it's like, throwing a painting on the wall. And it lets people know that this is what this is. It's a lit RPG system versus a gamelit system. And that's what I like to do. I like to, make it look like, or show the reader the world that they're in. And sometimes the stats become important later. Sometimes it's part of my toolbox that I can pull out, when I'm, again, raw dogging.
Raw dogging.
But yeah, that's my answer.
Awesome. And I appreciate you bringing raw dogging into this conversation. That's excellent. Very, very important.
I'll do it every chance I get.
If you're going to do it. That actually, I don't know if this is the best question to be bringing up, but it's one that I was curious about myself, because I was in construction for a lot of years, and we always called it, if someone was goofing around or they weren't doing their work, we told them, quit fucking the dog. And I wanted to know if that was a Canadian saying, or if that's something that you guys have heard of. Sorry for this side note, but I'm just curious, since you brought raw dogging it into it.
I have never fucked a dog, Steve. That's a weird question.
I looked it up. It's actually it's not just them. Like it's out there that this is a thing. But pounding the pooch is another way of saying it, I suppose. But maybe that was a crass way of.
Screw the pooch is like the one.
Screw the pooch.
Screw the pooch means that you've made a mistake. Usually, I screwed the pooch. I made a mistake.
Anybody who has sex with a dog is making a mistake. So.
Oh my God!
But in reference, that's and I when I heard it, I was like, why would you say that? That does not sound like, I've never thought that sounded appropriate. But I was like, how common is this saying? Because it's come up a few times, but I'm in Canada. So
I don't think I've heard it before.
Weird shit all the time.
What I want to know is what Donut's stance is on screwing the pooch. So.
It depends on what your definition of a screwing in this case.
Yeah, nice. Sorry, that really downgraded quickly. I apologize for that.
Yeah, bestiality always.
Yeah,
sidetracks conversations.
Yay! Harmon is back and
Yes, I
in
am.
style. You beautiful man, you. It's nice to see that gorgeous.
I had some technical difficulties. The audio cut out, and then I don't know. But here I am, and so I moved to my desktop. I was on a phone.
Awesome.
Hey, fam.
Well, I'm glad to have you back. For sure.
There was a question about a series Bible.
Yes. Can we need to get back to that one, because that sounds like a much better
It like
thing than what we were
disappeared,
talking
and I'm
about.
like, poor guy with this question.
Okay, so how big are your world Bibles on your series? Harmon, since you're back, let's start with you.
For my new book, it's quite expansive. As I've said, I've been kind of side building the world for several years. This one comes out tomorrow. In terms of how big it is, I use Evernote, which I really recommend for those types of things. And so it just has a lot, like everything from currency stuff to like a pretty deep dive into the cultivation system, so I can be ahead of myself. If it was put into Pages, I'd actually like to put it into Pages one day if I can like really work on this world a lot. It would be quite long. So, but most of it doesn't make it into the book. It's just background.
Awesome. Sean?
So it varies a lot. In Descend, I had to have a spreadsheet just to know all the harem members because I couldn't remember their names. But in all seriousness, Life in Exile has a 40-page spreadsheet that's full of stuff. I had one mom message me once that her son was just going crazy because he couldn't figure out how the XP had worked from a certain level to a certain level, and begged me to send her my XP chart. I did. And she messaged me back that her son was then okay. Apparently he I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I mean, it really varies a lot. It's always a few pages, up to like that 40-page spreadsheet. So,
Matt?
I don't know what's ahead of me, but I always keep really extensive notes of what's behind me. I use Excel. I'm having someone help me with a more organized Bible. My Excel sheets for Dungeon Crawler Carl right now is 100+ pages, and each sheet itself is literally thousands of entries. I keep track of everything, every quest, every character, every piece of item, every stat, every god, every whatever. And it's a little cumbersome right now. I'm trying to organize it, but any one of us who's worked on a series knows, you're very brave, and you're like, oh yeah, I can keep track of this, and then suddenly it becomes too cumbersome to not keep track of. So my advice is just keep track of everything you've done.
That's
and
really good
I
advice.
use Excel.
I have one piece to add to that I should have said in my bit. One of the things that's really helped me, and I've been doing it for like about 2.5 years now, is when I finish a book, I send it to the editor, and when I get it back from the editor, I write the synopsis as I'm going through their edits, and then or the proof, or one of the two. I'll choose one of them, and then when I come back to the book, because I do 2 projects at once, I will read the synopsis and edit it to use in the front matter of the next book, right? To kind of get me back into it. And that has helped me so much, because I write like a 2 to 4 page synopsis, and I hate doing it. I hate it so much, but I thank myself so much, like 2 or 3 months later when I get back into it. If you're just writing one, sticking to the same series, you won't have to as much, but if you're flipping around, oh my, it saved me so many times.
Shami, how about you?
I definitely keep a series Bible. I'm with Matt in that I like to have all of the details in a place. It usually runs, depending on the series, like over 50 pages. Sometimes when you put in like details, I never want to catch myself doing things like his eyes were the color of whatever I wrote before. So I have everything written down, from what color eyes they have to if I make a definite statement about them, like their favorite cookies or chocolate chip cookies, I got to write that down because that was a hard fact type of thing. In legal terms, there's a term called puffery, and that's when it's a non-definable thing. So if you're like, this guy's super handsome, that's pretty undefined, but it's a hard fact, hard line detail if you say he's got blonde hair. So later I can't write he's got brown hair or else I fucked up. So I always write down hard line facts. For my lit RPG, I already mentioned that my husband and I made a system, and it's like 5,000 pages. So I wouldn't say that's like a series Bible. It's just a thing that I can always reference and be like, oh, right, what did we put down for powers at B rank? I need to go read all those, like that kind of thing. So if you count that, boom, 5,000 pages. But if you just count my normal series Bible, they're usually between 50 to 100 pages.
That's awesome. We're coming close to the end of our session here, so we're going to have one final question that will get all of you to answer. And then as you're answering your question, if you could at the end of that or at the beginning, whatever you prefer, give us where we can find you, or if we can find you on social media and follow you and keep track of what you're doing. That would be great. So social media tags, websites, if you have newsletters, that kind of stuff, let us know. So finally, to wrap all of this up and look at what the crunch is and what the juice is and whether or not it's corn or any of it is really applicable, how do you guys see this this genre evolving? Do you feel like it's becoming more crunchy or less crunchy, or is it still maintaining that balance of a bit of both all the way through and people are going to find their own path? Shami, let's start with you.
To answer your question, I think that I've seen generally that it's gotten a little less crunchy, but the people who maintain the crunch maintain a certain audience, like people who really, really love that. So I think that it's just going to broaden and expand like most genres do. As for finding me on the internet, if you just Google Shammy, there's really just me and some Middle Eastern soccer player named Shammy, because my name's technically a male Middle Eastern name. So you'll find all my stuff super quickly. I'm on all the social media things. My latest book coming out is The Nexus Challenge, which is like a death game with a bunch of games that are video game inspired. So, like wave defense or an escort mission, but also you can die if you get it wrong. So if that sounds fun, you should check it out. The next one's coming out soon. And that's it.
Awesome. Sean?
What was the original question? I'm sorry.
The original question is seeing Crunch and Juice
Yeah,
in
sorry.
that RPG.
I was listening to the Tower Defense because I just published a Tower Defense book and my mind completely went somewhere else. Sorry. I think that when I first found Lit RPG, there was a stratification between Game Lit and Lit and Crunchy Lit RPG. I think that that's going to continue to expand on the fringes of what is considered Lit RPG and what isn't. The genre is going to become broader and more of just progression fantasy. There's still going to be Crunch, and there's going to be plenty of other people who don't care about that. So, which is an awesome thing, because the more people we bring in, the better, right? As far as finding me, I'm in Discord. I'm on Facebook. If you're in any of the Facebook groups, you probably can't avoid seeing me. Sorry. I have a book that came out today called Tower Mage. And then next month I have a book coming out called Prism Academy. So take a look, and thanks.
Awesome. Harmon, how about you?
Hey, what's up, everybody? Oh, wait, we're not doing that part yet. Well, that's the end. Okay, where it goes in the future, God, who knows? Look where it's come from when we started this. I mean, like, I don't really know. I actually appreciate Sean's Sean, sorry, I'm future questions are always a little bit murky to me, but I think that it will be for people who write Crunch and like Crunch, they will find that, and people who don't, they will find that, and there will always be people that are happy mediums. As you guys can see, I'm doing real well as a Lit RPG author. I mean, look at this piano in the background.
It's gorgeous.
This is definitely my living room and not like some background that auto-generated here.
If we have time at the end, can you play us out? Would that work out okay for us?
Well, I broke both my hands, but I will show you the new book I have coming out. Wait, oh shit, the background's messing it up. Look at that. Okay, so I'm going to show you this afterward, but I'll tell you about it. It's called The World According to Dragons. It comes out tomorrow, my God. And I'm excited. It's a progression fantasy, leans cultivation, kind of dragon cultivation. And it's the accumulation of everything I've done thus far. It's my 4th progression fantasy series, and it's the one that I think it has the most unique system and has the possibly the best reach. And so I'm really excited about that.
That's awesome. And where can people find you?
You can find me in this void that I call my living room with the nice piano, and or www.harmoncooper.com. I am on all social media, unfortunately, for my own free time and my my mental stability. So I'm everywhere, so you can find me there. But if you go to my website, you can check out my blog, which I've posted extensively about this, and you can go to my link tree from there and just check out all the books. I have this coming now. Next month is a Cowboy Necromancer novella. In December is War Priest 4, and then in January will be Pilgrim 7, which is my 75th book, and then I'm retiring.
I love the fact that you are both sharing the same house. I did not know that you lived together. I was not aware of that.
Yeah, he's just in the other room. He'll play us out. Both his hands work.
Oh, good. Thank you, Matt, for voluntolding us. That's what's going to happen.
Oh, Matt, or I mean Harmon.
You call me Harmy to make it like.
Okay, Matt.
I definitely think less crunch is becoming more popular, but like everyone said, the more crunchy stuff still exists. It still has its original fan base. It'll always have a fan base. But who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? It seems to keep changing and evolving. Like Tower Climber books kind of came out of nowhere, a while ago, and then and farming books are becoming popular. You never know what's going to be next. It's going to be like Bowling Alley Manager, whatever, that sort of thing. Who knows? But my name is Matt Dinneman. You can find me, just Google my name, my last name. There's not very many of us. There's just me and then Senator Dinneman, who's retired. So, you know, I'm easy to find.
That's awesome.
And that's it.
Well, thank you so much, all of you, for putting up with me and my ridiculous questions. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about Crunch and Juice. And thank you, everyone that's hanging out in the chats and asking all these great questions. It's been awesome. I appreciate it. My name is Steve Campbell. I'm also on all the social medias under Steve Campbell VO. And that's what we have for tonight. So we'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.
Have fun. Bye.
That was a peace sign, but you can't really, yeah.